Yeah, more fun than pulling a pig's tail. It is the Sixers Talk podcast brought to you by Wilmington University. WilMU Works, Danny Pommel's, Noah Levick, the principals. You know, you see us here every week. We got Ben Barry in the cut, our producer extraordinaire. We're coming to you live from Rivers Casino. Thanks for checking us out wherever you are watching this: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. Noah, here we are. March Madness continues. The Sixers are winning basketball games, and moments before the podcast began, Joel Embiid named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week for the 10th time, joining Allen Iverson as the only Sixers to reach that mark 10 times or more. Let's heap some accolades on this guy. Over the week, Embiid, 38.5 points, 6.8 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 2.8 blocks, shooting 62% from the floor, 50% from three, almost 88% from the free throw line. Led players in total points, free throws, as you might expect. He scored at least 39 points in 3 consecutive games. You get the idea. He's really good, and the Sixers wouldn't be where they are without him. We saw the gentleman in the locker room yesterday, and they were very excited about having a day off today. And 7 of the next 8 on the road, though, starting with Cleveland on Wednesday. Paul Reed has been playing well. We saw Dwayne Dedmon. Are you thinking there's a moment here to give Embiid some rest heading into this Cavs game, or maybe the Hornets game, or something over these next couple games?
I would be surprised if there's any imminent rest for him. I thought it was actually interesting last night when he was asked just about his intensity on defense and the way that seems to have improved since the All-Star break. His first response was, well, I'm healthier. So I think he's feeling good, and was appreciative that this was the second time in 3 games that he got to watch the whole fourth quarter, because the Sixers played damn well and blew out, another team here. So, yeah, I think Embiid, has a nice opportunity to rest those feet and be feeling good for the matchup against Cleveland. So I would not expect that, but it is worth monitoring what unfolds there at backup center. As you said, Paul Reed has, for the most part, carried over the strong play that we discussed on the road trip. But Doc Rivers said pregame that he plans to play Dwayne Dedmon definitely. And he indicated, part of the reason Dedmon has not gotten opportunities to this point is just the Sixers wanting to ensure that this, 33-year-old guy was fully healthy after injuring his left hip. And Dedmon did get the brief garbage time appearance last night. So we shall see if there's an actual rotational opportunity for him coming up on the road for the Sixers. Certainly a tough case to make that Paul Reed deserves to be, supplanted from this rotation, given the way he's playing and given the impressive chemistry with James Harden. But as far as the big guy, I think we should continue to see him as long as, there's no injury misfortune here down the line.
Yeah, that is the name of the game. Health is of the utmost importance. And despite Embiid not playing the fourth quarter last night, that did not hasten his time to spend with the media. He still was sitting, with his feet in ice and taking his time to speak with us, probably the last person to do so, as is typical fashion. We got to see a little bit of the old and the new last night in that garbage time with Jaden Springer and Dwayne Dedmon hooking up on a nice play. His health is important. So many Sixers fans had been critical of the fact that he had not played, considering that he was the prime acquisition of the buyout market for them. And speaking of hips, Jalen McDaniels is A-okay and should be fine for Cleveland and moving forward after that little contusion situation.
Depends on how you heard Doc Rivers' comments. I think at a minimum, he is not expected to miss, an extended stretch. Rivers said it's not a serious injury and it looks like he'll be okay. If there's some caution that the Sixers exercise here, I think that would be fair enough. They envision McDaniels helping in them in the playoffs. That's the main reason they traded for him. And therefore, if he's not feeling his best, tomorrow night, then perhaps you just say, okay, let's sit him for the first game of the trip. So to me, that sounded a little more TBD, but regardless, yeah, good little sigh of relief for the Sixers that Jalen McDaniels did not suffer any significant injury. He was grimacing, he was holding his side, and it looked a little alarming at first. So the Sixers' good injury luck as of late seems to have continued. And to be fair, I think they were due for some better fortune on that front because it was a horrific start to the season. You had Tyrese Maxey and James Harden both missing approximately a month, and now they've been fully healthy for quite a while. And lo and behold, 5 straight wins, and the NBA's best winning percentage since they started 12-12, and a ton of encouraging signs that have just ridden on the foundation of the team is healthy and able to throw its best lineups out there every night.
I'm glad you bring that up, the start to the season and where we are now, because it has been some fun basketball over these past few weeks, and a little bit of everything, where Joel joked last night in his post-game interview that we didn't fall behind by 20 points this time. So that helped us get this big win wire to wire over the Washington Wizards. And, since our last podcast, we got the return of Matisse Thybulle. We got this Wizards game, which was a blowout, but as exciting as the finish was to see Joel with that fall away jumper at the free throw line, where he has been wreaking havoc against opposing defenses in that area, it just also brought up the point that this isn't a team without their flaws, and they are working through that over these last 15 games. As I mentioned, 7 of the next 8 on the road. I really like the way they're trending, considering that they are continuing to keep space between them and Cleveland. They're 3 games back of first against the Celtics. And the matchups right now in the first round are the type of matchups I am excited with. I'd rather not play the Heat, who sit in 7th, but facing the Knicks or the Nets, I am perfectly fine with that. Shout out Mikal Bridges, though, because I will always enjoy watching him play, and it is amazing to see how he has hit the ground running with Brooklyn. But all that being said, it's been an exciting season and a different team than what we started out with here with the 76ers as the season's coming to a close. Embiid is playing on all cylinders. They've changed the rotation a bit with Matisse Thybulle being traded and the influx of Jalen McDaniels and Paul Reed's emergence. Montrezl Harrell has kind of faded to the back. Are you liking what you're seeing? I know they're on a 5-game winning streak. I know they've bounced back against Portland and fell behind against a team they should beat, but winning is what matters most. They continue to have great vibes, the health and whatnot. Are you feeling the momentum that they're generating and the push to continue to be better and get past the second round? That's the ultimate goal, is getting past the second round.
I think essentially, yes. I think, you asked heading into the grueling post All-Star stretch, the best way to see it for fans, or, how we should evaluate all this. And I thought a simple, explanation there was just, let's see where they're at in March. And so far they're 6-1. And obviously some very high quality wins, in that mix. I think the bottom line is this team has been star dependent for the last couple years. And if Joel Embiid is playing like the best player in the world, the way he is now, that gives you a lot of reason to believe that they can pull out tight playoff games. So, I'd certainly agree that there continue to be reasons for concern projecting ahead. Defensively, I think they've shown this ability to access a really high level late in games. Last I checked, they were tied for first in clutch defense and third in defensive rating in fourth quarters overall. But you look at the first 3 quarters and the numbers are uglier, 13th, 14th, 20th. So just putting it together for entire games, that hasn't really happened. And I think the bottom line is, consistency. You'd like to see a little bit more of that, but as long as you're winning games, I think that's consistent enough. I mean, and that's ultimately what the playoffs are about, like finding ways to win.
Yeah.
And the variety of answers they've had has been damn impressive to me. Like, I think part of that's been depth, right? Daniel House Jr. has a nice game. Paul Reed leads them to a hot start in a fourth quarter. Harden goes off in Milwaukee. But yeah, part of it's just more intangible stuff with the toughness and the resilience and the self-belief, because they've put themselves in some difficult situations, right, where they are behind by 20, and they now see they can often win from far behind because they've got great talent, and they've got players who are able to navigate out of trouble essentially. I thought last night, kind of on a side note, there was a really encouraging one for PJ Tucker and Tobias Harris,
Yes.
two guys who did not close against the Blazers. Doc Rivers certainly made the right call to prefer Niang and Melton over those two. But those guys set the tone defensively and kind of gave the necessary effort to ensure the Sixers did not again start poorly against an inferior team. And just the sheer number of players that have been chipping in during the 6-1 start to March. I think that's all extremely positive, and not all of it is applicable to, will the Sixers have a deep playoff run, but I think some of it is. And the bottom line here of 6-1 in March, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, listen, this is a team, as I mentioned, that has their flaws. This is not, the Chicago Bulls or Golden State Warriors of dominance and like overwhelming the opponent. This is definitely a team that's going to have to get hot at the right time and continue to play through their stars and be upper echelon when it matters most. We'll get more into how this defense is coming together. Of course, we want to remind you that we're brought to you by Wilmington University. WilmU Works. Ready to build career skills in 2023? Apply to Wilmington University today and get started by March 6th. Learn more and apply at wilmu.edu. Upskill, reskill, or start fresh in 2023 with a degree or certificate from Wilmington University. WilmU Works for you. Apply today to start March 6th. We are here coming to you from Rivers Casino. Time to rush to new rewards at Rivers Casino. Now there's a whole new way for you to earn, redeem, and level up your rewards. Get your new Rush Rewards card and get more out of your game at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Live from Rivers Casino, the Sixers Talk podcast in all its splendor. Noah, we have the leading scorer in the NBA at 33.4 points per game. James Harden at just under 11 assists per game, the leading assist man in the NBA over Tyrese Halliburton. Probably won't have the defensive player of the year. And as far as the MVP goes, there is a guy in Denver who is 7 foot tall, averaging a triple-double. But there continues to be this groundswell of Embiid and the MVP, maybe some voter fatigue of voting Nikola Jokic the MVP might infiltrate this decision process. The people who vote are human, so that is a logical correlation to make. Are you feeling like Embiid's chances to win MVP are improving? Are you feeling like he is the front runner? Where do you have this debate right now? And particularly, I feel like personally, he might have been a better candidate in years past with as much as he was depended on by the team. But the way his game has continued to grow and mature and develop, I think has shown an ability to be better on both ends that I don't think Nikola Jokic has displayed. But where are you at with that?
Agreed. I think, the various odds out there would tell you that Jokic is still the quote unquote favorite,
Right.
But perhaps front runner is now too strong a term. And it does seem like people who have a vote are coming around more to the idea of Embiid is an elite two-way player on a team, essentially with the same record as Jokic is, and that he is super valuable and special in a way that feels worthy of an MVP award, especially, given that it hasn't happened the last two seasons. So, I mean,
is there a dark horse we're not recognizing?
I would think definitely again, Giannis Antetokounmpo, could, vault himself into
I
the
know.
mix. Yeah.
I was thinking a dark horse, but I mean, it's hard to
Well,
even
I
have the
guess, yeah,
discussion without that guy.
out of those two, yeah.
but
No,
yeah, I guess
I think certainly, I would be shocked if anyone besides those three wins it. And
Right.
I think it's really just going to be Jokic or Embiid yet again. I think it feels inevitable that those are the top two players in the MVP voting. So, look, I think Embiid continues to make a really compelling case for himself, and the Sixers keep on winning. And let's say they finish with, over 55 wins, which is actually on the table here. And he leads the league in scoring and, continues to be at a really impressive level defensively, racked up 4 blocks last night, has thrived lately in a more roaming role. If all those factors,
making the highlights, being the
sure,
guy making the game
yeah,
winners,
the game winner
know what I
doesn't
mean?
hurt.
Those type of things do influence people. You hate to think that seeing someone make up one play will sway one way or another, but the crunch time matters. Who's showing up when the game's on the line? Not that Nikola Jokic isn't, but Joel is just on a tear. I mean, obviously Eastern Conference Player of the Week recognizes it, but he's just been marvelous, man.
Yeah, no, he's got a real shot at this, and I think it didn't feel that way just trying to gauge the landscape and how voters were seeing it maybe a month ago.
I was just about to say, it's been about a month that's kind of changed the tide a little bit.
Mm-hmm. There are always, ups and downs, but I think the primary reason things are trending up for Joel Embiid in the race is just he's played fantastically. He has played like an MVP, both in terms of stepping up in clutch moments, the sheer production, the remarkable career best efficiency. And, it doesn't hurt that the Nuggets are trending down a little bit. And Jokic has been not quite at his usual level, over the past couple weeks. So whether or not, those two things continue moving in those directions, we shall see. But Embiid absolutely could do this. And I think the notion just that his overall body of work over the past 3 years feels like an MVP player, perhaps that does, sway a voter who was on the fence at the end of the day. But it's interesting because I think for me, just like the Sixers finished with like 57 or 58 wins. And he's, the leading scorer in the NBA. And I think the consensus seems to be he's a, top 10 defensive player.
And they've had so many national games that he's shown out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're
not have getting the in and out day-to-day stuff.
Absolutely.
The shot that wasn't with the Celtics heave from 3/4 court just was everywhere. And you hate to think that, a shot he didn't make but it's just the effort, the basketball prowess, his, unicorn nature. And not to say Nikola Jokic doesn't have those things, but maybe this is a year where he's vulnerable to be usurped in Embiid's prowess in the areas where he may be weaker is becoming more exacerbated or noticing. But before you answer, Ben Barry letting us know that there's never been a player to win MVP 3 times in a row and not make the NBA finals. The only players to win an MVP and never make it to the finals are Steve Nash and Derrick Rose. Hopefully the Sixers can make the freaking finals this year in short order, but it does give some credence to the idea that the voter fatigue or the fact that as a 2-time MVP, even more is expected of you, even though it's a regular season award, those things cast a shadow on some of the decision-making.
Yeah, I think there's probably less of an inclination toward voter fatigue than in the past when people weren't, leaning on the numbers as much as they do now. But regardless, still totally fair to expect that will be present to some degree, especially if at the end of the day, the consensus seems to be, yet again, this is a race that should be close. And yeah, Embiid has a chance to put himself in I think, a decent position. Obviously, he already has, but, continues at this level. He has a real opportunity to be the first Sixer to win the award since Iverson. But I don't think we want to overstate it. Like, I think any place that is making odds will still tell you that Nikola Jokic is the favorite for this award. But maybe Embiid can keep moving in a good direction.
Odds are shrinking. It was 5-1 last week, so it's not 5-1
No.
anymore. Hey, if you are injured for over 70 years, Lundy Law has been the #1 personal injury law firm in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Their services are exemplary. Their results are exceptional. Call 1-800-LUNDY-LAW to get the money you deserve. No, I want to touch on a lesser thought process or perspective with the Sixers team. I mentioned Mikal Bridges earlier. There have been so many misses from the Sixers in the draft, or trades that didn't work out, or players that didn't quite pan out. But anytime Doc Rivers has a chance, and Brett Brown was guilty of this as well, but I'm going to judge each situation on its merits. Anytime Doc Rivers gets a chance, he is trumpeting and telling us about the defensive prowess of Jaden Springer and what he's going to be, and et cetera, et cetera. How much should, and when I see Jaden Springer on the bench, he's on the edge of his seat. He's participating. He's obviously going through this ridiculous back and forth that's required to be a two-way player with the Blue Coats and the Sixers and up and down 95. But he pays attention. He's engaged when he gets out on the floor. He takes advantage of his opportunities. Is this a guy we should even be putting viable thought into of becoming a part of the Sixers here and over the next couple of years? Is this a player that will be in the mix in the future? And is Doc Rivers right about any of this defensive prowess that he says we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, well, it's funny because he's not even technically one of the Sixers two-way players, but he is most definitely been on the road a lot from Philly to Delaware, and seems to be making positive strides overall. He's been really intentional about trying to shoot more threes. He is doing a better job of getting them off in games, and he seems to feel more comfortable with this shot. I still am not so sure that I love the mechanics, but at least at the G League level, he's putting up threes, he's making some, and perhaps he can continue in a good direction with that.
We've heard guys say, and particularly the person that comes to mind is the guy that got traded from San Antonio to Atlanta that I'm not thinking of, DeJounte Murray. He said the defense is what got him on the floor. Mm-hmm. Kawhi Leonard told him, listen, you focus on this, they'll have to play you, and that way you'll have your opportunities on offense. Is that the way this guy's going to get on the floor? Do you see the defensive prowess that Doc Rivers is referring to?
I definitely see like solid defensive tools. He slides his feet well. He has a knack for, mirroring guys on the ball. We've seen some spectacular rotations and blocks, even in like summer league. He cares a lot about defense. He tries really hard. He's attentive. So I do think there are like encouraging indicators. I think that's a leap to make, to say he's going to be elite defensively in the NBA. I think you ultimately learn whether that's the case just through reps. And for me, it feels a little too early to make that kind of projection, but no, I totally buy that. Like on a foundational level, he has the tools to be a good NBA defender, and that seems to be the view from everyone who's coached him, and who's invested in his development. But yeah, he's been working when he goes up to the Sixers with Phil Beckner, who's Sixers coaching consultant, is around the team a lot, known for being Damian Lillard's trainer. It was interesting. Asked about that, I think a couple weeks ago, when he said, obviously they work on some of the fundamentals with the shooting, with, implementing, different moves in his offensive game. But Beckner is really big on like the little details of how do you carry yourself? What's your posture? Like, how do you listen to others? How do you relate to your teammates?
Oh, so some of those things are what we're seeing. Well, I mentioned those things I see with Jay.
Perhaps, yeah, maybe that's a good sign that he is demonstrating. He's listening well, but he was like excited about that stuff. I think he's just really enthusiastic about how can I get better, and the idea that there are on-court aspects of that. There's the fitness and weightlifting aspect of it, which is a thumbs up for him. He's a damn strong kid, and there are also some of these miscellaneous things related to just improvement in the NBA that he's really invested in. But for me, I think this year looks exceedingly unlikely, barring a serious injury or two.
And he'll be on summer league next year.
Perhaps, yeah. You would think it wouldn't hurt yet again. I think we'll see how next offseason plays out for the Sixers, who they bring back, who they might sign externally. But I think regardless, it's not hard to project him having a real chance to be a rotational guy, especially because perimeter defense, guard defense is not a strength of this team with Tyrese Maxey and James Harden. Of course, they've upgraded in that area, via the DeAnthony Melton addition, but
who has 1 year left?
Yeah. Melton will be back here next year, but Springer, I think, very well could have opportunity next season, and he is still really, really young, but feels like next year is the one that is a pivotal year for him. I think Daryl Morey was getting a little ahead of himself when he thought, year 2 would be the one where Springer made a big leap. I think, there have been some positive signs for him in the G League and with his, skill development. But as far as impacting NBA games, to me, year 3 feels like the one to keep an eye on for him, and the one that perhaps is going to be telling.
Daryl Morey and JJ Redick's crosshairs here in the media. JJ Redick's turned it into one of those heel broadcasters. He was a heel player for a while. Now he's a heel broadcaster. Do you think he's just trying to stir up interest, JJ Redick? Just some of his criticisms and.
I think he has legitimately strong opinions and is passionate about the league. I'm sure.
He's more passionate. Like he wasn't that passionate on his podcast. Like he wasn't like getting red in the face and like defending.
True. Yeah. I think he's for sure learning. There are, differences in the various mediums, and, the podcast, there's perhaps more of a tendency to be, even-handed and analytical, and First Take and the TV side of it is not as conducive to that. But obviously he's, super knowledgeable on the game. And
I like him as a play-by-play guy. I could take or leave it with the studio stuff.
Okay.
But when he's calling games, I think he has some good insights.
Yeah, he does his research. He cares about getting things right, and I think there are a lot of reasons to listen to what JJ Redick has to say, but that does not mean that every take he has is golden necessarily.
Right. Just like us, right?
Same as us.
Just like us. But shut up, Derek. All right. We appreciate you listening to the Sixers Talk podcast, brought to you by Wilmington University. WilmU Works for our producer extraordinaire, the mouthy Ben Berry. I'm Danny Pomels and Noah Levick. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you listening and checking us out. We'll see you next time. Pod Thursday. Copy. Ben Berry gave me the thumbs up. So Pod Thursday. We will see you then. Be sure to like, listen, subscribe, get the thoughts, comments, and everything coming. And we appreciate you guys as always. Always take care.